Hello and welcome everyone to another weekly market commentary from StashAway. Of course, with us again, our Chief Investment Officer. Hey, Freddy.
Hello, guys. Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. How are you?
Pretty well, and I have to apologize in advance if you hear airplanes in the background. There's been a lot of exercises going on today.
Yes, you are close to the airport. You're right. No problem. I can actually hear some in my background today as well. So yeah, there must be a lot going on because it's been very quiet the last few months, right? But anyway, we are getting to that in a second. Before we get started, just want to announce to everyone also that we do have a Telegram group. So if you want to subscribe to it to stay posted on any company news, product updates, market updates, and insights from StashAway and from Freddy, as well as our events and other useful finance and investing articles, please share with your friends. There's a link below the video to subscribe, so it's very easy to do, and we hope to see you in our Telegram group as well. Freddy, let's get started. Obviously, lots of talk still around the stimulus package. I think we talked about the last 2 weeks, right? Because Congress, they were debating about it. Nothing really happened till Friday, so Trump had to step in, right? You want to tell a little bit what's been happening on that side?
Firstly, we call this the impasse. So since last Friday, there haven't been any new meetings, negotiation meetings scheduled at all between the Democrats and the White House. So that sort of means that progress is really, at the moment, far apart. And the impasse could really dominate into September. As you know, in the US, right, we always have this debt ceiling problems where they start running out of budgets and they have to approve new funding needs and new issuance of US government bonds to finance those things. So the so-called stopgap spending bill needs to be passed before the government goes into a shutdown on 1st October. And they always passed it, but this time is different in the sense that the stopgap spending bill's timeline must also coincide with what is going on in the stimulus package. If it's not happening by then, the stimulus package, it means that it would not happen until much later. And it's a much needed thing that the real economy needs real help from Congress rather than financial market money printing from the Fed, right? So this is what the market's focused on. I think, Philip, you mentioned what Trump did. It really didn't generate any wave in the markets because it was seen as taking money from other pockets to cover some other pockets. Yeah. So it was a market neutral event, essentially. So that's my quick summary.
Yeah, and I think there was already a lot of people, from both Republicans and Democrat side that said it's unconstitutional, right? So I think the market has been pushing that to the side for now. So a great update there on the stimulus package. Also with running out of the money for the stopgap solution because it's getting close to the November election then, right? We're looking to run out just before that. So who knows how that can be politicized over the next few weeks as well. Well, let's take a break and let's move over to Asia and look at what China has done now to retaliate. All the announcement we spoke about last week, right? Like the proposal on a TikTok WeChat ban. Obviously, the sanctions on Chinese nationals based on the security law being passed. China finally did some retaliation on their own. First of all, what is it? And also, how did that impact anything going forward?
Oh, wow. Fortunately, Chinese retaliation has been friendly shots. They customarily included names like Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, the few senators that were very vocal against China's involvement in certain provinces in Xinjiang and human rights violations. But those are old news. People knew those names were mentioned. And so it didn't really matter in terms of no one from Trump's personal circle in the White House were included in those sanctions. So I think China's strategy remains to wait for the elections to finish and to see how Trump fares. And so the right thing to do, the optimum thing to do now is not to provoke, but you still want to be seen as doing something, but you wouldn't really go to a full-scale escalation. That's what the market was quite reassured about, and that's why we remain at this level.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, the levels have been very, very nicely moving upwards, right? So I think by the time we record this, markets have, shown days of weeks now of really resiliency, right? And moving up to almost new to all-time highs, right? With that being said, if we stay in China / close by, or Hong Kong had their first big-time arrests made under the new security law, right? So which to some people will signal that, hey, Hong Kong, it's not the same anymore, right? So this is now hitting home, exactly what everyone was worried about under the new security law. Do you think this has any long-term consequences or short-term consequences right now for people doing business there?
Well, the arrest of Jimmy Lai, and it's a high-profile person. He's the owner of, I think it's Apple's Daily, one of the main newspapers in Hong Kong. And it's because it's also a media person, it really sends a signal that the state control, the ironclad is coming down on Hong Kong real hard, right? And the national security law allows them to do so. So this is a hardline approach. And you can see the way China manages the White House in the sense that they do not provoke directly, and yet they focus on implementing their original policies internally, right? So it's very targeted. It remains focused. The direction is unchanged. This is a new regime for Hong Kong, and it's not going to be taken nicely by for foreigners and also perhaps investors outside the region.
Yeah. And then the last point before I go into one of the users' questions we got is the vaccine, right? I know we talked about a lot of next steps and they're progressing nicely as far as we can tell from the outside, right? Looking in. Vladimir Putin made an announcement. Again, had not so much impact on markets at all, right? But he made an announcement this week that he approved the first vaccine, and he even gave it to his daughter, right? Where do you see this vaccine going, or why do you think it's not made a big impact at all on markets? Like normally when a Moderna says, hey, we are going to the next testing stage, right? Stock skyrockets, right? Yeah. Well, I think I can list, but want to hear from you.
Well, I think the fact that it's not a very transparent regime, it could be just propaganda to sort of send a message to fellow Russians that things are fine, right? People who don't know whether it's this reason or whether it truly is a progress in Russia. So there's not enough information to really for people to hinge on, right? And whereas in the Moderna's case, it's promising in the sense of the way they're able to quickly test with the RNA approach. The RNA vaccine approach is not as effective as DNA traditionally believed, but the ability to quickly redesign and remodulate and create various versions of vaccine with the RNA approach is what's welcomed by markets. And the ability to mass produce is also greatly enhanced, right? Mm-hmm. And then the Oxford AstraZeneca situation is actually really promising as well, right? You have a combination of antibodies and T cells that will complement each other to attack the virus. So, and yet, however, it's a lab, right? It may not have the same mass producing capacity, right? But nobody knows anything about Russia. Production capacity, efficacies of vaccines, we have no data, no information. So it's understandable that we just ignore it.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, but when Trump's son Barron probably heard that Putin's daughter had to take it, he was probably scared, that his dad probably wants to try it on him now too, because he has to be even, right? At least with Vladimir Putin. Well,
it's not going to harm you, right? If it doesn't work, and hopefully it's just minor side effects, and it wouldn't harm you even if it doesn't work. So why not?
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, Freddy, let's get to Terence. Terence 10, he asked us a question from last week on the last week's video, and he's saying, hello, StashAway, do you think the market will crash once again, just like it did in March? or will there be no more crashes? What's your opinion on that? Maybe you, Freddy, want to take it?
I'll take it as a personal question, and I have a personal opinion. Yeah. And if 2008 and the post-2008 crisis period is any guide, even if you're in the bull market that never looks back for 10 years, like the last 10 years before COVID, you will still see a lot of corrections, right? It's actually part and parcel of the bull markets where, when flamboyance and people forget about discipline, the market always starkly reminds us what is important. And that's when people get reminded that the market can correct without any moment's notice, even in the bull market. So it's a fool's game to try to predict the next crash, but we should prepare for, at least for volatility and corrections at all times. So we believe that, as StashAway, we firmly believe there's a lot of day one financial planning tools that one can use to really prepare ourselves to navigate these things. And Philipp, you and I have been giving classes on this, right? The first thing we do is to create a sufficient amount of cash buffer in terms of living expenses, so that if there's volatility in the market in the near term, we do not need to draw on the portfolio because we need the money, right? So that's the number one route, right? But further, in the StashAway algorithms, we create a lot of day one portfolio insurance as well, right? We try to use safe haven currency allocations to mitigate any losses, to offset the losses, so that when you view it in Singapore terms or Malaysian terms or local currency terms, they actually a lot less severe than the underlying assets, right? There's a lot of buffer that we've built into our portfolio construction. So all these are day one, right? And being able to predict it is a bonus, but we do not want to rely on fortune telling.
No, I agree. And Terence, if you want to learn more about it, actually, we have a webinar coming up here in Singapore. It's called a deep dive on our asset allocation model. So actually, Freddy will go into much more detail on what he actually just highlighted here a minute ago. That's actually on Wednesday, the 19th of August at 7 p.m. So for anyone in Singapore who wants to sign up for this, there's a link below, as well as on our website. And in Malaysia, we're going to have another webinar for our Malaysian audience. It's going to be called Look Inside StashAway. That's on Wednesday, the 26th of August at 6 p.m. Again, links are both in the show notes below. Same to our Telegram group. Also, if you want to listen to our podcast in your best interest, subscription button is below as well. Otherwise, Freddy and myself will be back next week. And for everyone else, have a great rest of your week, and we'll chat soon.
Until next time.
Yes.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified whenever we have new content out for you. Also, don't forget to download the StashAway app. It's available in the Apple App Store as well as the Google Play Store. So you can start on your financial journey right now.